All right. Hello, everyone. My name is AJ, and today I'll talk about why reverse migration has been the cool new thing these days. So initially, cloud was meant to cut costs, right? So the subscription fees were straightforward, and maybe you had a couple of hidden costs, maybe the transfer fees and all of that. But then you also end up with this proliferation of unused resources that just languish without proper management, right? So, and the cloud companies, they actually thrive on this lack of optimization. Is this going? Okay, all right. So, right. Oh, I think I'd hit play up there. Um, so if you autoplay and then play. Yes, okay, there we go. Okay, so cloud companies are actually, they know that the applications are not optimized, so, and they make a lot of money out of this other lack of optimization, right? So knowing how to optimize is the first step. And initially, if you have, a startup with a few apps and you're just starting to figure things out, it's okay to use cloud, but as your app grows, right, linearly, your cloud costs are going to grow exponentially, right? And you'll end up in a situation like this where most of your resources are wasted and you're only using like a portion of it to actually run your applications, right? So I mentioned you could use cloud initially for the smaller enterprises, but also large enterprises who maybe have a diverse need for, rather than buying hardware, it makes sense for them to use cloud as well. So ultimately, it's use case specific. Okay, raise of hands. How many people here think that Jeff Bezos became a billionaire by selling books? Good. I expected no one to raise your hands because, we have to sort of rein in those costs, right? So first thing you can look for, maybe bringing in like AI ML workloads, right? Maybe like a GPU processing and anything which you can build locally and have more control over your models, right? You can run it on a Kubernetes infrastructure and anything where you can have it homogeneous over multiple environments, right? Whether it be hybrid cloud or multi-cloud. So you want to make sure that you want to have those tools in place. And what are some of the challenges of repatriation? So the lack of on-prem hardware knowledge and the initial hardware cost, and just harmoniously working with the rest of the infrastructure, right? So to aid with this, think of cloud as not like a location, but like an operating model. So no matter where you have your infrastructure, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, in Kubernetes, make sure the processes are homogeneous and you could use a similar process across. So to start to think about this, think about where you're going to store your artifacts, how are you going to build them, the CI/CD pipelines, and versioning your infrastructure as code and your provisioners, and also making sure you have some model to build your application, right? So an example of this would be if you pull from an upstream image, you would build it locally, and then you would push it to your registry and maybe test it a little bit, and then you'll use something like Terraform to provision it on your infrastructure. And these images can be, you can either build it, completely with your API and web, you can bake it in, or you can fry your image in a way where when it boots up, it's going to install the application, right? So in a diagram, it would look like you'll pull it from upstream, you would build it, and you'll push it to your registry, and then you'll pull it back from your internal registry to build your layer 2 application artifacts. I'm not endorsing any of these tools, by the way, but some of these things you need to think about are how are you going to build your image, how to test these, where to store the secrets and your artifacts, and what are you going to use for infrastructure as code. And think of your infrastructure as cattle, right? Like, make sure everything is backed up, you have replication set up, make sure one infrastructure going down is not going to take your entire application, right? So make sure you have redundancies in place. And make sure you don't put all of your stuff in a public network. Make sure you have different networks, like an ops network, air-gapped network, a public network where you can your APIs and web applications could go, and maybe your storage and databases should go in an air-gapped network, right? And even if you are geographically dispersed across multiple regions. You can have these different networks in each site, and then you can link them using a dark fiber or some other way, right? And so the three main broad categories you want to think about is your on-prem hardware knowledge, and think of cloud as an operating model, and just using native cloud rules across your different environments. So am I saying, okay, close all your cloud stuff and just go out? No. I'm just trying to start a conversation where think about what makes sense to move on-prem, what makes sense to be in cloud, and then go from there. And that's my time. Thank you.